Good day, everyone. Today is December 4, Saturday, and I actually decided to pre-record the lecture for today because I noticed that since Monday, my internet is very unstable. Murag naa man gyud giayo diri dapit sa amua, and I am so afraid that during our synchronous class, maputol-putol unya ko, no? And then maikog sad ko nga you will be waiting for me while mabalik kay that is what actually happened to me during the week, no? Murag unstable kay ako internet. So, I decided to pre-record this also para pod ma-review in case some are absent today. So, welcome to our class. This is December 4. We have talked about the 4 approaches to language testing, and we moved on to authentic assessment last meeting, no? But I'd like to look into the following this particular scenario. If a student does poorly on one of your tests, perhaps you can ask yourself, perhaps they did not or understood, never did the work in the first place. Perhaps they did do the work and understood the work, but did not study for the test. Or maybe, perhaps they understood the work and studied for the test, but did not understand the question or the questions. Pwede ba yan, no? Or perhaps they understood the questions and they knew how to answer in their native language. Mayo kay sila mutubag ana, binisaya lang, but could not answer in English. Example, you ask a question, what did you do during the COVID? Oh, daghang kasag matubag pero binisaya lang, ma'am. Or perhaps they thought they knew how to answer in English but did not give the right answer or did not give the full answer. Or maybe because they did not check their work carefully before turning in the test. So that is why one of the most common reasons why teachers should not only use tests is because students may have test anxiety. No, agree gid ta ana. What tends to happen is that students are so nervous when presented with a test that they don't do as well. You then are not able to see what the students or what this particular student is really capable of. Now, for ELL students, di ba, no, ato naman hinahisgutan before, they can be extra nervous. Kaya di ko na sila native in English, no? Just like Filipinos, kita Cebuanos. We are learners of English. Because not only do they have to recall the information they learned, but they may have to decipher what the test question is asking in the first place. So it's really important to consider the framework if we are teaching ELLs. If an ELL student is a little slower to read or to decipher materials, especially if they have had lots of support in their class, a time constraint on a test won't give them sufficient time to complete the test. Just because a student didn't finish a test doesn't mean they don't understand the material. You then are left guessing as to whether or not your student actually understood what you were testing them for. So kada bitong time tested ang exam, no, kanang usay we can really say nga there's a little bit of bias kay although the student is knowledgeable about something, but mura siya ma-press sa time ba, although naman po na siya giingon nga dapat they have to be there is speed, no, and accuracy. But if we are testing for proficiency in language, we give time. Okay. Now, here are important things to consider aside from giving the pen and pencil test. Now, we can do rubrics and performance criteria. So, it's usually based on language proficiency and academic progression through work such as presentations, written assignments, and reading activities. You cannot only use these to grade your students, but to chart their growth over a set of period. Like sa first quarter, makabasa raman siya usa ka libro gyud for a span of 3 months or 2 months ba ng one quarter niya. Pag ikaduha na duha na ka libro iyang ma-finish. So you can actually graph na you can keep track of the progress. Both tools feature a list of criteria or standards that students know what you're assessing. Rubrics show what is considered below level, at level, and above level. A performance criteria can simply be a checklist of what to assess for each student. With either of these assessment tools, it's important to develop your own, as assessments are based on the teacher's judgment. So later on, next week, actually, we will be talking about rubrics. So there is also an app no or a website usually mo gina-visit nato Ruby Star. I hope you're familiar with that. It's a tool that is very helpful. There are a lot of rubrics where teachers develop and they share it there. So you can Google that rubystar.com. Daghang kaayo didto ka ng rubrics about presentation, rubrics about reporting, rubrics about role play, and etc. So we will learn more about that next meeting. The second one is we can make do of oral presentations or performance. So we can ask our students to, especially for those who are good with speech, no? Many students who have test anxiety might get nervous because their reading or writing are not that good. But it doesn't mean, however, that they aren't proficient in oral skills. Di ba? Lain man gyud, we consider individual differences. So there are also students who are very good at role playing or making an interview or oral reports. And maybe some are also good in summarizing or paraphrasing. So when used on an ongoing basis, it's a great way to monitor a student's comprehension through a long period of time. So when we talk about oral presentations and performances, we mean these are examples: role playing, no? They play roles. It can assess students individually or even as a group. Some ideas include having students write a play or they write their own script and then they perform it, or even having the students teach the teacher as part of a review class. Another is for oral presentations is the interview. This type of assessment is very helpful if you have students that are early English learners. To help test students on content knowledge, try to use a lot of visual cues. So, pwede gid ka itanang magpa-interview ta nila, no? Next, you can have them describe, explain, retell, paraphrase. Instead of letting them write it down, why don't we ask them to tell it? So I remember when I was an English teacher, a high school English teacher, I assign every Monday and Wednesday, there are assigned students who will tell a short story to the class. Something that they have read, or maybe sa Facebook na story that have interested them. Nga kana bang something like trivia, pwede rapod ka na something that is new, no? And then we call it our 5-minute aha. Ako lang ging 5-minute aha every Monday and Wednesday. So every Monday, a certain student is assigned to give orally, without a copy or something. So for me also to test nga ang pong oral proficiency sa bata ba ma-practice po because they speak in English. And secondly, it is also something that will teach them to be responsible because if it's his assigned schedule, he will really prepare. So no need for visual aids. Just stand in front of the class and tell us that aha story or aha news or aha trivia or something that is very interesting. So naisa nga katong kanang nag-earthquake man to that time katong kusog kay katong nag-earthquake ito yung aha. Actually, wala siya kuno naka-prepare, but then it happened early in the morning. So I'd like to share with you what happened. So he was actually describing and explaining and retelling what happened during that morning nga nag-earthquake. So 5-minute aha muna amo ang gitawag ato nga time. Okay. So aside from those oral presentations, we can also make do of non-verbal assessments. So when we say non-verbal assessments, these are kanina ang pictures. We can ask our students to draw. Now, what have you learned so far in our assessment class in September? Can you write an infographic about it without any without any paragraphs. Infographic like you can use phrases or words in ana lang no. So you can make them, you can let them draw a diagram, no, or you can even make them play some charades, kana mga games. These are non-verbal, but it's also a way for us to assess nga nakat-on gud ni sila kay during the charades or kaning mga games nato or mga pictures, letting them write, letting them draw, conceptualizing something that they have learned is also our way of telling ana gyud ay nakuha ang bata nga lesson. Say for example in a reading material, you let them read about the secret life of Walter Mitty. All right, draw the first part of the story, the original life of Walter Mitty. So without explaining using paragraphs, by just the mere drawing, we can say if you look at the drawing, we can tell and assess the students have learned something about the story of the secret life of Walter Mitty. The second part, draw the secret life of Walter Mitty. So makita mo dito sa drawing kung nakuha ba gid niya ang mga different secret lives ni Walter Mitty, no? Nindot sa na siya nga story. All right, aside from nonverbal assessments, we can of course nagit yung mga writing assessment, and this is also common, no? Kaning written assessments are of course a nice way to see how students can apply their knowledge of English over a wide variety of concepts. So we can let them write an essay, creative and structured writing assignments. We can also make them do editing work, no? So for example, you give them a material unya imo jung tuyuon nga mga errors ba because you'd like to see the grammar proficiency sa bata. So, okay, here is a news article written by magmugna din kag story, no? And then you are the editor and I'd like you to edit this news article before this will be published. So, this is also an assessment, no? Murag imong tuyuon ba nga nangasayop, di ba? So, this is like the suggestopedia nga pamaagi pod. Reading response logs. So give students a list of questions such as how do they know a character is evil or how they change the ending of a story. When students are finished reading a book or article, have them write down the answer to these questions. Make sure to only assess for content and not for spelling or grammar unless you specify to your students that you're also doing that particular assessment. So daghan kay tag pwede mabuhat gud when we talk about assessment and belonging to the written assessment. You let them write content logs. You let them write metacognitive logs. You let them write a diary. No, say for example, magsugod na mo og discuss og novel. So say for example, I remember I was an English teacher and we had the Pearl, no, the Pearl by dili to the Pearl. Ang gi-discuss is katong nakalimot mahinuon ko anyway na slip out of my mind. So when you have the journey of a novel, for example, kato na lang Shakespeare, no? So we talked about the Odyssey. So journey biya gito ni Odysseus, diba? So at the beginning of the lesson, you also tell them to keep with them a diary. Yeah, after every English class, they write down the things they have learned parallel with that of Odysseus. So, unsa po yung journey ni Odysseus of that particular period, unsa po dito yung mga lessons nga na-learn, maghimo sa sila ilang diary. And that's also a way for us teachers to assess students' understanding of the material that we are giving. And the kan po any very interesting kaning written assignments because we can become very creative at this, right? Another way to assess nga dili lang gyud paper and pencil is through portfolios. Portfolios are powerful assessments and are used to gather various samples of student work to track their development over a period of time. In order to maximize the potential of using a portfolio as an assessment tool, you should, as a teacher, regularly curate students' work to include in them and have scheduled conferences with students about their work. Ang mo gina siya ideal pero sa kadaghan natong estudyante maglisod tawag nila one by one, no? But ideally when we have portfolio based assessment, we call them atong pakiton sila sa ilang folder nga at the beginning of the semester or at the beginning of the quarter imong scores mauni maraginay kay kaani nga particular competency. But I am very happy that now that we are in the third grading, tanawa imong mga scores may na kay kamusuwat og mga sentences and paragraphs mo gyud na siya ideal, no? So you should also have a checklist of qualities that are important to showcase students' achievement. Not only do you critique and assess the work, but so should the students. Sila mismo mo, assess po sila. Mura sila mag-thinking about their thinking, mag-metacognitive activities sila ba. That way, they are responsible for their learning and take more ownership. So at least they know where they are, they know where they're headed, where they are heading, unya ni-own gid sila sa responsibility for them to really also know the real situation. So, materials that may be included in the portfolio are performance criteria or rubrics, recording of oral presentations, their exams, their writing samples, the drafts, even katong mga kuri-kuri pa lang nila nga pa-write sa paragraph, katong mga draft pa submit to gyud. Bon makita gyud nato ang progress. Mga book reports, mga interview check, everything gyud in a folder. Unya na din kay way of i-organize na siya, no? And then nindot kay na siya tan-awon bito ang journey nila ba from first quarter, first week to the last week of the first quarter. So tan-awon na to pila na day ka-exams, pila imo mga scores so far, nag-improve ba, and etc. So what I have given you earlier are some of the things that a teacher can give, no, that can also serve as assessment. So to recall on sa tong 5 kabuok, we have the first, rubrics and performance criteria. We have oral presentations or performances, nonverbal assessments, writing assessments or written assessments, and portfolio-based assessment. Additional to this is, of course, authentic assessment. So, authentic assessment is actually assessing by doing. Authentic assessment is based on students' abilities to perform meaningful tasks they may have to do in the real world. In other words, this form of assessment determines students' learning in a manner that goes beyond the written tests. So, unsa gyud nahitabo sa real world. Meaning to say, it is a form of assessment in which students are asked to perform real-world tasks. Please pardon the periods, no, typo na siya din ha. To demonstrate meaningful application of essential knowledge and skills. So, meaning authentic assessments are similar to those tasks that are encountered in real life. Kanang mahitabo gyud sa tinud-anay nga panginabuhi. Example, naamang gyud nag-report, nahitabo man gyud na. You answer a phone call, nahitabo man gyud na. You ask for directions, mahitabo man gyud na. You try to order in a restaurant. So mga yun ana ba, no? So here are a comparison of authentic assessment and the traditional assessment, which I was able to get from Wiggins and Grant. Sila man gyud ani mo oy murag one of the pillars of kaning authentic assessment katong ni uso pa tong UBD, if you remember, understanding by design. So go over that, no? Benefits of authentic assessment, pati yung daghan na. Number 1, I place that all in red. Number 1 good is it reduces test anxiety. Kaya nga naman, instead of writing the test or kana answering, authentic good tinud-anay, no? Second, it can address the varying learning styles and cultural backgrounds of students. Okay, lain man. Next, number 3, tasks used in authentic assessment are more interesting. Kay excited kaayo tano, like example, mahitabo man gyud nang mag-tour. So sige, I'd like you to become a tour guide. So exciting kayo sa mga unahon ha. So it actually nurtures the creativity of the students and they become reflective as well, no? Next, ultimately a more positive attitude towards school and learning. Okay, excited man sila nya di man ingon nga i-test nga writing or written. So ganahan kayo sila, no? Next, authentic assessment promotes a more student-centered approach to teaching, of course. Authentic assessment provides valuable information to the teacher on student progress, and parents will more readily understand authentic assessments than the abstract percentiles with equivalents and etc. Okay. However, in making sure that authentic assessments are done by us, no, teachers, maghatag kita nilag task, we have to also consider important things. Di man kaingon nga, ay, basta kay authentic assessment ni akong gihatag. No. There are also critical things to consider. Example, you have to make sure that the tasks are really meaningful. Kay kung layo lagpas la kaayo murag lamam oy pobre man ni ako mga estudyante ma'am nya di man kay ni sila anang maka tour around the world or asa murag di man kay meaningful nila, so make it contextualize. So say for example taga Barili sila or taga Bulhuon or taga diin, no? I'd like you to accept, or I'd like you to welcome or to accommodate 10 tourists who are from different parts of the world, and they really chose your town, your municipality. Example, Badjan. Oh, hala. So, meaningful nila because taga dinha man sila. And then they know the places. They know the barangay. Whereas, okay, let them tour in Cebu City. In town, ang bata, wa pag yun ka atong Cebu City. Wa siya kabaw nga naa ay kanang adto ay dito sa Kuan, Taoist Temple, adto sa 10,000 Roses, adto dito sa kana na ang katong Palace of Leia. Unsa na siya diha kanang murag katong palasyo ni Leia, katong sa to diha kanang castle ba to unsay pangalan ato. So dili man kay siya ana aware. So the student does not find the task meaningful. Whereas if you contextualize it, then meaningful siya. Okay. These meaningful tasks are often linked to demonstration of knowledge, skills, and abilities needed. And lastly, authentic assessment typically relies on using a rubric. So, important sa kayo nga, di lang ka magpahatag-hatag assessment, but before giving the assessment actually, the authentic assessment, you have to present a rubric para makibawagin ang students, diring dapita dako dinig points, or how will I be graded. Okay? So here are examples of authentic assessments which we have already discussed a bit earlier. So, natin mga oral interviews, no, story or test retelling, writing samples, projects. So I have written there the advantages of doing so and some descriptions. Anyway, this PowerPoint and this recorded lecture is always available in YouTube and even in our Google Classroom, so you can just go over this when you have more time. We also have experiments or demonstrations. Like say, for example, I like you to cook your favorite dish, no? Because you want the students to master mga transition devices or mga kana na ang giving directions. So, authentic assessment, padimuha sila diha. Like, how to cook pancake. So first, second, so mga adjectives that they would like to use. Another is constructed response items. So, na mga open-ended questions, and then students will give their own responses. Teacher observations, and of course, we've talked about the portfolio. All right, so I don't know if you're familiar with GRASPs. I don't know if this is still being used in the department or in DepEd, but it reminded me of GRASPs. Ganahan kay ko aning GRASPs because when you write authentic assessment, dapat mo follow kita sa GRASPs. Nga naman, easy kayo siya. Example, G stands for the goal. So you provide a goal for the particular task. No, establish the goal, problem, challenge, or obstacle. Example, mayong ang task baron is you are you are trained, not trained, but you are asked by the mayor of your municipality to be part of a team. Kamoy think tank ng mga youth kintahay. Example, junior high school or senior high school, imong gi-teach. So, ingon ka, you will be part of the think tank of your barangay or of your municipality, of your town. The goal is to manghita din kag problem sa ilang barangay, no? Example, the goal is to increase ang atuang tourism sa atuang barangay. So unsa may buhaton nato nya ikaw kay bright man kay ka nga student, you are recruited. That is your goal, to increase tourism percentage in the barangay, and your goal is you are part of this is now the role R. The role of the student in the task is you are part of the think tank. You are recruited as part of the think tank team to think of ways to increase the tourism kana na ang percentage or department of your municipality. Who are your target audience? So of course, you will present the ideas that you have brainstormed sa inyong team with, or you will present it to your mayor and to the townspeople or unsa pa na diha. The situation, you have noticed that the mayor has noticed unsay situation that inyong town murag nagkagamay na lang gyud ang tourists. So ang situation is the mayor is actually recruiting mga kanang mga youth, mga young minds nga with brilliant and creative ideas to think of ways, no? So product or performance, what will they do? What is it that they will need to do? They will come up with list baron of things that the barangay or that the municipio will do to increase tourism. Standards and criteria, of course, this is a clear picture of success, meaning how will they be rated? Okay, so ganahan kay kuning grasps because especially if we make use of authentic assessment, mo follow gyud ka GRASPS. So kinsa man. So, and then in a paragraph form imong ihatag ang assessment instruction to the students, no? For more information about this, I'd like you to visit this website. Okay, it's very interesting because this website presents authentic assessment examples for English language learners. And we're focused on English language learners being English teachers ourselves. Okay, so I will not further anymore because it's already 25 minutes. Dapat 30 minutes lang yun ato ang lecture or an hour yun unta po to, no? But anyway, I'd like you to make use of the remaining time to do the asynchronous task that is related to this lesson. So, what is the asynchronous task? I'd like you to list down 2 topics per quarter. So, say for example, you are a DepEd teacher. There are 4 quarters in a year. Pagpili lang gud kuno, we are going to make an assessment, authentic assessment portfolio. So, what you will do is to think of or choose a total of 8 topics, English topics. Nganong 8 man? Duha-duha lang per quarter. Duha-duha lang per grading. So, what will you do? How about for those nga naa sa academy, kana mga nag-teach og Koreans, English, or online? Pagpili gihapon mo a total of 8 topics. Okay? So, first, I'd like you to list down these 8 topics, no? And then, beside every topic is the skill, or what is the competency that you're trying to address. And in the third column, you think of authentic assessment, which you can make use to address this skill and this competency of a particular topic. So maghimo ta og murag assessment, authentic assessment portfolio. So I'd like you to collect all these in a tabular form. So sample lang ni siya, no? You can use this table. First column ang mga topics, 8 kabuok. Pag-choose og 2 topics per grading period. Or kung wala mo grading period kay per semester, basta a total of 8, no? 8 English topics or content. The second column, what is the skill that you are addressing? Or what is the competency that you are trying to achieve? And then on the third column, I'd like to look into your own authentic assessments to address this skill and this competency. So, excited ko to look into what inyong mga creative juices that you can think of, one for every topic, no? And this will be submitted next Saturday. So anyway, I just got 25 minutes of our 3-hour class today. You can start with this activity, with this task, with the remaining time para dili na mo ma-burden during the weekdays, because I know you're also having your job, na pa may teaching activities na and everything. So gamitan na lang karon inyong time. Anyway, this is something that is quite easy, no, to do, and upload it in our Google Classroom. Anyway, I have also placed in our Google Classroom this task. All right, so thank you very much for listening, and this is getting exciting because we are moving from the traditional testing, which is paper and pencil, moving to the different other assessments that we can use, especially for language instruction or English, for the English subject. So today we've talked about other assessments, aside from those that we have talked about in the previous months, which is purely on paper and pencil. All right, so I'm excited to look into your output for this. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next Saturday. If you have questions or something that is bothering you, nga ma'am ka nang ganahan ko mo add unta sa lecture ni mo, ma'am, please do so. Message me so I can acknowledge you. No, you can message me in our Google Classroom in the stream, or you can email me, small letters tanan mananay j at cnu.edu.ph, or you can text me or Facebook sa messenger. Pwede ra gyud. I'm open anytime. Kana lagi og dili pod ma-unstable akong internet. Kay lately gyud class no nag-uol kay ko kay katong nagklase ko pagka Wednesday, ko putol-putol niya. Ma-afraid ko ba karon Saturday magklase ta maputol-putol ko. So mo nang gi-record na lang gyud ni nako daan. So call me or text me if you have concerns. 0927 633-4789. That is my Globe number. I'll be very happy to answer your questions or your concerns. All right, see you all next Saturday, and let's keep in touch via our Google Classroom. Thank you, and God bless everyone.